All right. It's time to rock and roll with another hour of Scotch Hour. My name is Noah.
I'm Jesse.
All right, Jesse. So we have the new Ardcore Scotch that we're going to be reviewing tonight, right?
That's right. They say it's your taste buds punked.
It has like a big
Churd.
It has a big punk theme to it, if I remember reading the box. There's like a lot of info on there.
Yeah.
And then after that, we got our shout-outs that we'll be doing and / get it togethers, along with our restaurant, which actually I forgot the name of it.
It's a Trattoria Dionisia.
Trattoria Dionisia. Is that what you said?
That's it.
All right. And then our Smarter Challenge, which is HP Lovecraft and his influence on literature, movies, TV shows, or whatnot.
Scotch Review.
All right. Well, this is, I literally believe this is the newest addition to their Scotch lineup, the Ardbeg Ardcore. And as it mentions, taste buds punctured. It's not fair for the light pocketed. So at around 120, 140 a bottle.
I think after tax is like 140, so probably a little bit less than that.
Yeah, so you don't want to go into this one either light at heart or light in the wallet.
As Jesse likes to say, there is no price value with Scotch Hour, or price doesn't matter, or money doesn't matter.
Money is no object.
Money's no object. That's what it is. I screwed that up.
Dude, we have done multiple Ardbegs on our show at this point. The Ardbeg 10, a hit. The Ardbeg Wee Beastie, not so much. And we're both intrigued by this most recent variation. The box, I've got to admit, is fun.
The box is a lot of fun.
It's eye-catching. It's fun. It's modern. It's got all these little stories about the different characters involved in it, punks, if you will. And you had mentioned that there were only 3 known punks on the entire island of Isla. And with that,
I guess they had like people who came over to look at, like tourists that would come over there to check them out to see the Mohawks and stuff. I think that's what it says on the box.
They had a grunge band. Colin Gordon, who is now the distillery manager, was part of a grunge band called Snailbait.
Snailbait.
Like, what is snailbait? Is that my understanding is that's algae. Snails eat algae. It's got to be algae. So is that a fancy way of saying we're algae?
I don't think so. I think they're also accounted for the only 2 places where graffiti hit Isla. There's like a rock and then like a building that both have like the letter A or something on there. It's somewhere on that box.
It's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting. Lots of literature. Well, what did you want to mention about Ardbeg?
Actually, I didn't really take too many notes down about Ardbeg since we already talked about it quite a few times previously. The one thing I will note, they do have tours there, but it seems like their tours aren't really listed the same way as like some of these other distilleries that we talked about recently. And the way Ardbeg kind of does it, it's done by the seasons. So they have like one in March and one in the winter, one that looks like one in the summertime. The only times that they don't really do tours, and they mentioned it on their website, is when they have like the few weeks that they're closed for the year. But other than that, like there's really not much I put down in my notes for knowledge.
We've covered the basics. Isla, the island of Isla, known for peat and smoke.
Exactly.
With that, though, this box, something not common to Isla, the light blue, the white, the yellow inside and out. It is a fun box, and it's also a pretty fun bottle. Also true to Ardbeg, they go with that deep green. They just throw in their touches of light blue and yellow on there.
Yeah, I was going to mention like the glass bottle there does scream Ardbeg.
Yeah. Now, they've got a zipper looking release here at the top of the bottle to take out the cork. And sure enough, if you catch it at the front of the zipper, her pants come off like, well, they almost came off like a dream.
That's Looks like you're having to work for it.
Yeah. That's
She's making you work for this one.
Man, it's the 2 glasses of wine at the Italian restaurant.
You would think that would be a panty dropper after that dinner.
Oh, I haven't even opened it, and I can smell the peat.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they didn't do a very good job with that. I'm sorry.
The problem was I was so anxious to get the zipper off, I tore it. Oh, on the nose, she's pleasant. She's got lots of perfume here. That is a light, chill filtered Scotch, bro.
Yeah.
That looks like pear juice.
How many, what's the ABV on this one? I think it's like 46%?
46. Yeah, 46.
46, okay.
Man.
So it should be like one of the stronger ones for us.
It looks like the Pinot Grigio from dinner.
It actually does look like the Pinot Grigio from dinner.
You can, however, see, since it was non-chill filtered, some small little particulates in there. Flavor boosters, I'm going to call them.
All right, cheers, and we'll go on to our warp speed here.
Cheers.
The Ardcore Scotch, I do like it. It gives me, makes me think a lot about the Lagavulin 16. And I probably wouldn't have placed that right at first until you mentioned something during our tasting session there. So thank you. That was a good call. For me, when I first look at this Ardcore, when I think of something like Ardcore or whatever, I'm thinking like it's going to be like hardcore, right? And I thought I was gonna think I thought it was gonna be like a darker color, but it is a very pale color. And you're right, when you first poured it out, it does remind me very much, almost like the same color that we had with our Pinot Grigio. So if I didn't know any better, if I had this like in a wine glass and I wasn't really paying attention to the way it smelled, I probably would be like, "Oh, look, it's a Pinot Grigio." But no,
could be a fun prank to play on someone. Here's your Pinot
until they smell it.
I mean. Just wait till there are a couple drinks in,
right? As far as the bouquet goes, I got like hints of tar, definitely like the typical Isla peat type of smell. So you get like that Band-Aid or whatever, like some people might say, smell, and some I got some citrus, which I believe is a more grapefruity type of like light citrus smell to it. When it came to my palate, once again, I get some citrus, some anise, which is that some of that spiciness there, which then kind of leads into like ash and cedar and roasted barley. And then it finishes with a nice like leather and smoke and charcoal flavors. And it's a great, I mean, if you like Isla type of like scotches, I think this really like represents Isla very well. And honestly, like, I mean, for the cost value wise, I think right now Lagavulin 16 is still like $104 a bottle versus this $140. I still go with the Lagavulin 16 over this, but this is also another very tasty bottle out of Isla that gives you that nice peat and that nice smoke and what you truly expect from a traditional like single malt Scotch, in my opinion.
Yeah, for me, the color, this is a pale gold. Like this lady ain't seen the sun, or she's an albino. I don't know which one it is. It's not necessarily a bad thing. Could be hot. Definitely gothic, right? Gothic.
Gothic, yes. Gothic. It's definitely pale and albino-ish.
Yeah. On the nose, I get definitely... There's a little sweetness there. It's a little bit of toffee to me. And I think that comes from, as they have mentioned, their black malt barley. I think that's where that's coming from. It's like a mixture of dark chocolate and toffee sweetness. Now, what's very interesting to me is that doesn't come out in the palate at all to me. I get it on the nose, but nothing on the palate.
I agree exactly. And you talk about black barley. I would expect something to come out darker, but this is like super pale. It's like the opposite.
Opposite day. All right. So on the palate for me, that citrus is kind of, you get the peat. Can't deny the peat and a little bit of smoke. The citrus for me, though, is lime. It's actually lime that comes out. It makes me think of a gin and tonic. I'm like, hey, kind of sexy. Like this might be, there might be a huge future and it's not quite sure what it is, but I'm getting lime as the citrus. Again, the peat, a little bit of smoke. As I get closer to the finish, this is where I get that lime transcends into it's almost a chalky charcoal. It dries out my mouth at the very end. All of a sudden, I'm like, this lime's got my mouth watering. And then all of a sudden, what's this chalk? And it's charcoal. It literally dries you out. It's a fun Scotch. I think the greatest difference to me than this and the Lagavulin 16, which I agree with you, not just because of price. The Lagavulin 16 is just a dream drink. That is like a Father's Day dream come true, right? And I think the flavor for me that comes out, that's the difference there, is this doesn't have enough leather. That Lagavulin 16 has so much sexy leather on the finish, it makes me want to lick it.
It's time for our shoutouts.
Any shoutouts this week for you?
For me, it's really tough. It's really tough to have a shout out right now in this very trying, turbulent time to any one individual. So I'm actually going to give my shout out to the average American. And good for you guys keeping it together. Let's not go further in debt. Let's really adjust our spending. And this is going to be something new for a lot of individuals who so far in their entire lives have never had to really budget. But with inflation and everything else changing, if you haven't had and I'm going to say this, there's two different sides, a minimum of an 8.6%. That's just the basic inflation increase in income in the last 12 months. You have gone backwards. And yet you probably finding it very easy still to go out to restaurants, Grubhub, everything else, do these things, lots of fun. But the real staggering statistic is that 8.6 is well under reality when the average rent has gone up well over 20%, whereas the average car price has gone up over 20%. And they're saying that some of the individuals, the economists are saying, yeah, if your pay hasn't gone up 17%, you're feeling it, you've gone backwards. You better be budgeting and managing your money more wisely. So America, for those of you who have managed to do that so far, great job. Please keep doing that. For those of you that might need some help, do some research. It is going to, put your boots on. It's going to hurt.
It is going to hurt.
We've been through this before.
Yes.
Not everyone has. So with a recession, and there might be a recession. With a recession
that we are currently
it is a very unique whirlwind of unexpected events. Housing goes up and down. Cars, transportation goes up and down. Gasoline goes up and down. Food goes up and down. But really the bottom line is everything goes up and down, but most people's salaries are wages.
I think if you're looking at any point in time to study in history right now, you should be probably studying the Weimar Republic of Germany and looking at what happened with their currency and the hyperinflation, because I think we're on that verge.
I don't even want to say it. I'm praying I'm wrong. That's really what it is.
Hopefully we don't get to that point, because they have pictures of people
wheelbarrows of money.
Wheelbarrows of money just to buy a loaf of bread.
One loaf.
And it got like, they had like $1 million like marks and stuff like that at that point in time. So it got really ridiculous. So hopefully we don't get to that point, but that's a good shout out. My
German supermodels were eating bread because it's the only thing they could afford.
My shout out goes to SCOTUS.
Bread makes you fat.
I'm giving my shout out to SCOTUS, Supreme Court of the United States, for ruling in favor of the Second Amendment, overturning the
Gun law?
the gun law in New York, and also overturning Roe versus Wade.
That one's a tricky one for you, man. That one kind of hurts. I'm not going to lie.
Well, here's the thing. If you really kind of like start studying about Roe versus Wade, the lady who is Roe, I forget, she actually, that was a fake name, and she pretended, she was like an actress or whatever. She pretended to be this person. And later on, it was found out that her name is like actually a really different name, and that she was playing a part in order to try to pass this Roe versus Wade law. But here's the main point here. The federal government and our Constitution states that really, if it's not stipulated in the Constitution, then it goes to the states. So overturning Roe versus Wade, it does not say that people cannot have abortions, and it's not taking a woman's right away from having
Gives
an
it the
abortion.
states' rights.
It just moves it back over to the states where it should be properly anyways, and allows each state to decide whether or not abortions should be legal or not legal or whatnot. And in that case, this also brings into the account of our country in general, is that you vote by your feet. If you don't like the laws of a certain state, then you move to a different state. And honestly, it just goes back to the way it should be. And I like that about it. I can see where people are getting misled and why some people are having a hard time with it, and that's because they're watching too much mainstream media, and the mainstream media is not telling you the full truth. So I just say just go study what the Constitution is about, and then learn about what the law is about, and then understand that really that type of law should be done by each individual state.
I don't disagree with that part. I just think where it gets tricky is now that so many people might have to upend because they lived in less affluent, interestingly enough, less affluent areas where it's not legal, back to more affluent areas, which is also very interesting to me state-wise, more affluent areas where it still is legal.
Really what you're going to end up seeing is like liberal people who want abortions moving to blue states, and those who agree with pro-life moving to red states.
We'll find out.
So in any case, I'm giving the Supreme Court the kudos for that. It takes a lot of balls in this day and age to actually hold true to what the morals are and what our history is all about, and what our Constitution is.
I don't disagree with any of that. The one thing that was interesting, and this is as we're moving to our get-it-togethers. Get it together, Biden. You're the one sitting here complaining about this the moment it passed, talking about how this is doing so much harm. And I'm not saying it's not in some ways. But he is actually the one who put the most recent judge in this court that helped overturn it.
Well, here's the other thing. If you really want to be upset about it, you really can't blame the Supreme Court either, because really right now, you have a Democrat majority by 1 in the Senate. You have Democrat majority in the House, and you have a Democrat president. And if they really wanted to codify, make the Roe versus Wade into a code, a U.S. code, they could have done it. They could have passed it in the House and the Senate, and then had him ratify and sign it into law. But they never did that. Restaurant review. What was the name of that restaurant again?
Trattoria Dionisia.
Trattoria Dionisia. All right, I love that place. It's got
a lot of pros.
It's got a lot of pros. I think there's when you first walk in,
outside it's rough.
Outside is rough because it is in a strip mall, so it doesn't look super nice on the outside. When you walk in, it's still not like super. It's not something you see like you expect for like a high-end Italian place or whatever. It's still kind of strip mall-y on the inside. I mean, I think for the space that they had, I think they did a good job of trying to make it look nice. However, like I think they should have done something with the ceiling because they still have like the I don't know what it was, a cart. What's that ceiling stuff called?
Fiberglass?
I don't know what it is. It's it's like the little
cardboard tiles.
Yeah, the cardboard tiles or the rectangles, and you pop them up, and then you have like the fluorescent lights. And honestly, I think they should have done something else different there and change up their lighting because all they did is they took the fluorescent lighting that you see like in school with like that tiles ceiling, and it looks like they colored it with brown paint or brown marker to try to give it the ambiance that you need.
I'm guessing it was wood stain.
It could have been wood stain. Any case, I mean, if you take out all of that, not a bad looking place on the inside other than that, really. The wait staff,
dude, that's a 50-50.
That is a 50-50. Because I think our waitress was great.
She was a 10.
She was a 10. And then the other guy was like a 2.
Yeah, the busboy, not even a 2. He was a 1.
I think I don't know. Was he a busboy or was he like the...
He brought us butter with no bread.
But he helped serve other people.
I think he was our waitress's husband. That's the sad part.
He
or dating her or something because they talked about him as a couple conversations we overheard.
I don't know, but he sucked. He was terrible. Terrible. And so I think if you get her, which her name is Gabriella, ask for her because you'll get like good service. Don't get the guy because the guy is awful. So her, I'll give her a 9. Him, I'll give him like a 2. And if he was our waiter the whole time, I would not have left a tip.
Yeah, that's how bad he was. Noah's not wrong.
He was terrible.
He was terrible. He's a 0 to me.
Yes.
You don't bring half of the bread and butter. You bring the bread and the butter.
Yeah, you don't just say you bring butter and that's it.
How do you screw that up?
Well, and then there's that table behind us. What did you say he did to those people? Do you have there's probably like 5 groups in there already. And then this group comes in of 2 people and he's like, "Do you guys have a reservation?" Yeah. And that's the only time he asked that question.
Yeah. And it was interesting because they were a Hispanic couple. And I'm like, there's 25 tables and 20 of them are still open. What's the problem? How are you asking this couple that? I'm guessing racist. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, I couldn't believe that either when you told me that. I didn't hear it, but I wasn't paying attention either. All right, so for the food, I'm going to give it a solid 9, maybe 8.5. 8.5, 9. Because the bread was good with the butter. The butter had it was like a garlic butter with, I think we determined it was parsley.
I'm thinking so. It didn't quite have a basil flavor to me. Maybe oregano, but most likely parsley to me, Italian parsley.
And with the bread, it tasted pretty good. And then from there, we had the bruschetta, which this bruschetta didn't have the mozzarella. So it was just like garlic, tomato, basil, olive oil, and toasted bread. And it was delicious. Followed by something that was even more delicious, which was the Italian meatballs. They were so good.
They were a win, a huge win. Up till then, that was the first 10 for me.
It just kind of kept going up and up and up and up. And then we got our dishes, and my dish was pollo cacciatora, I think is what it's called. I don't know. I probably butchered the name of it.
The chicken day.
But it had sausage and red sauce, pasta, and chicken. The chicken was really tender, and actually, if it's just a chicken dish, I probably would have been like, yeah. But I think with the sauce with the chicken, that's what made it really work. Along with that sausage that they had, the Italian sausage that went with it, and overall, I thought it was a really great dish. So once again, I was very pleased with it. And then for dessert, I had the limoncello cake. Not as good as Mama Louise. Still decent, but not as good. It had more of a cake type of feel to it, rather where Mama Louise's had more of a tiramisu type of taste feel to it. And so how tiramisu has like more of like cream cheesy type of like smooth taste.
Yeah, very liquidy. Yeah. More layers ultimately.
Yeah, and that's how like Mama Louise's was. This was more like a cake type feeling. So I think overall I'm going to give it a 8.5 on the food. I'm going to give our waitress a 9. Our food 8.5. The overall like atmosphere of the place, probably like a 6. And I'm going to end up with an 8.
Your math is truly dizzying.
It's all over the board.
No, I don't disagree. We driving up, it is not sexy. It's not. It's just simply not. On the outside, like if you want to take a hot date there, someone you really want to get a good feel, a good experience, you probably just blindfold them until you get to the inside. The outside is at best a 5 for a restaurant scene. The inside's probably a 7. And the inside's not bad, but it's not, again, it's just not sexy. The bar was hopping with a bunch of people who were clearly regulars, and it was all about the happy hour for them, which was not outstanding, by the way. One thing on the website, not the same thing in reality, which I get. They mentioned that the prices and costs have gone up. Just update your website. That's all you gotta do. Take a couple minutes, fix that. And but man, yeah. When we first got seated, we got water and butter. And then a little bit later, we got bread and butter, and the bread and butter was great. As far as bread and butter goes, on the food scale was a 6 for sure. Good. That's good for bread and butter. That's like chips and salsa, and you're trying to have that be your whole meal. A 6 is a good score. Then we went to the bruschetta and the meatballs. The bruschetta was absolutely a 7. The meatballs to me were a 9. We had some Pinot Grigio with this as we were going through the many dishes. Noah had a balsamic salad. I had a Caesar salad. I think you won with the balsamic salad. My Caesar salad wasn't bad, but the Caesar dressing for my salad just didn't have that kick. Now, I don't know that anyone ever will after the Brown Palace's version of Caesar salad where they replace the sardines with avocado. That's just the best damn Caesar dressing on the planet to this day. I've never had one even come close. So this was pretty good. But then I had the Vitello Saltimbocca.
So good.
Oh, man. Veal, clearly hammered to death twice. Nice and tender, covered with spinach. Now, why spinach? I don't know. It was good, though. I'm not complaining. I think the one thing it did do was help separate the prosciutto and the mozzarella when the mozzarella melted from just becoming a hot mess on top of the veal. With these layers, and anyone who knows me knows I love a great Barolo. My dish was in a Barolo red sauce, and it was fantastic. Now, this dish was a 10. This dish was $30, and I would have paid $60 for it if the environment, the atmosphere, and the service were always going to be a win. I wouldn't hesitate to pay $60 for this dish. It's something I could see on a Il Mulino menu, but the difference is I'll pay $60 at Il Mulino, not $60 here, because of the environment and the service. That is the biggest difference. As you mentioned, Gabriella, our waitress, man, she was perfect. The other guy was a nightmare. Every interaction I had, unless it was a female, he treated everyone like he didn't want to be there. He was on his phone 95% of the time, not paying attention.
Yep.
It was unbelievable, actually. It was literally like, this isn't Taco Bell, bro. We didn't walk out of there cheap. It wasn't a $200 dinner, but it wasn't a $10 dinner. It wasn't a $20 dinner. It was a pricey meal. And I hope to God she doesn't give him any of that tip.
Oh, yeah, hopefully not, because I think our meal total probably after tip
between the two of us was $150, $150. Yeah. And
once again, price
good meal. He was not worth it.
Money's no object in Scotch Hour.
Yeah, that's the flaws that we go and do these things, and then we're like, meh, it's only $150. Meh.
Yeah. But hey, at least we're taking the hit for you guys, so that way if you do go to the restaurants, you know what to expect.
Yeah, know what to expect. So for me, am I taking a first date there? If you're about quality food and not about the environment, yes. If you can get the waitress and not the waiter, yes. If you get stuck with him and you want a sexy environment, It's over.
It's
You're
over.
Done.
Yeah.
You're done. So for me, ultimately, environment is, and this is a tough one because I always, we've talked about this, I always really consider the Italian restaurant something I want to be sexy. For me, the environment was a 6. The service, because of Gabriella, was a 10. I'm literally taking the other guy, I'm just throwing him to the side and pretending he didn't exist, because if he didn't, it was a 10. Environment a 6, service a 10. For me, the food overall was a 9. That's crazy because it wasn't cheap, but it also wasn't ridiculously expensive. Now, I did ask her what she recommended, as I also finished with the limoncello cake. I wasn't disappointed. Mama Louise, definitely the best limoncello cake I've ever had. And it was not that, but overall, food was a 9. Go there with friends. Absolutely. Go there with a date. Yes. Just make sure she's not expecting something sexy.
So overall, man, are you gonna be like me with an 8 out of an overall? Because like you're all over the board
like
too.
7.5. I know it is literally all over the board. It was crazy because I don't expect food that good from a place that's across the strip mall from a gun shop. Or next to a bagel shop that closed and looks like I don't know why a bagel shop looks like a daycare center, but it did. It was weird.
Probably because of the artificial turf that's there.
I don't know. It was all weird. Like there was so much potential, and then what is going on? It was discombobulated. Environment is a great word for it. And then you mentioned even them. I think they've been there a while, but the atmosphere might be time just to sexy it up a little. And it's going to be tough because I get the environment, I get the economic environment making it super challenging. If you got the resident locals coming in and they're your consistent customers and they're doing your business, good for you. Otherwise, maybe make it sexy.
Smarter Galactus.
HP Lovecraft and his influence on our society.
Ooh.
And is there anything you want to mention first from what you found about HP Lovecraft?
I mean, talking about anyone who is like, who's this? Howard Philip Lovecraft, born, as you reminded me, 1890. I thought it was 1880, but it was 1890. So we're talking about a hot minute ago. And then passed away 1937 at the age of 46 and change, which is pretty young, all things considered. And I don't want to steal all of your thunder because I know you did a lot more research than I did about the hot topics of his life. So why don't you dig in?
All right. So for those of you who don't know who HP Lovecraft is, he's actually probably more famous after his death, post-mortem, than he was while he was alive. So he's originally from Providence, Rhode Island. At the age of 16, he started writing for a newspaper, writing astronomy columns, because he was really into astronomy. He did drop out of high school. His dad actually went into an insane asylum when he turned age 3, died 5 years later. So at that point, he lived with his mom and her family. And then in 1919, when he was roughly like in his early 20s, his mom went into the insane asylum and died 2 years later. So for most of his life, he was haunted by the fact that maybe that there was something wrong with him and that he would go insane and die in the insane asylums as well. Even though he didn't finish high school, he was a very well-educated man. He did read Latin and Greek. So he was a very good student while he was in school. And obviously that's how he became a writer. While he was age 16, he also joined the amateur... what is it called here? I thought I had it written down in here, but it's like an amateur like newspaper group or writing group, and he ended up meeting his future wife with this group, and her name was Sonia Green, who is Jewish. And if you don't know anything about H.P. Lovecraft, he was actually a very racist dude. He was very anti-Semitic. He didn't like Italians. He didn't like blacks. And when he married Sonia Green, who happened to be Jewish, and the only reason why he was okay with her is because they weren't really a practicing Jewish family.
How do you not like the Italians? I get the rest. But no, I'm just kidding.
I don't know. But apparently he's like pro-WASP. He only wanted America to be for the WASPs, which I'm guessing that's like what, the Irish and English and stuff like that. I'm not really sure.
I thought there were little bugs that flew around.
Yeah, you know. Any case, he like his like most like normal point of his life is when he actually like was married and lived in New York, but that was like his most miserable time in his life as well, because he hated New York because of all the intermingling of racial couples and stuff like that. And even though like racial couples weren't like a really huge thing in the 20s and 30s and stuff like that while he was alive, he was one of those people, kind of like if you really study like Abraham Lincoln and stuff like that, where they wanted to send all the blacks back to Africa. He was kind of like that. He wanted all the blacks to go live like in their own like area. He wanted the Jews to stick with their own group, Italians to stick with their own group. And it wasn't like, so he was like racist, but it's not like he was like one of those racists who wanted to kill everybody. He's just one of those racists like, just stay with your own group. Any case, so that kind of gives us a little bit about him, but he was like really super into science and astronomy and stuff like that. And he wrote like over 70 pieces of work. And I guess that kind of takes us to like some of his influences. So that kind of gives us a little bit of his background there. Any influences that came to your mind in your research?
No, I'm just like stuck on the fact that this guy didn't like the likes of, let's say, Sophie Loren. How?
I don't know. I don't know how. Well,
all right. Well,
obviously Sophia Loren wasn't alive when he was. Right?
I don't even care. How about Monica Bellucci?
Was she alive then?
I don't even care. He was all about the future. Isabella Rossellini. Anita Pallenberg. Like, I don't get it. Anyway, sorry, my own personal thing.
I'm part Italian, so I don't get it either. But yeah.
Howard, you had some problems. Probably should have been in an asylum for not liking the other races. And the difference is sexy to me.
I honestly think probably in that time and age, though, I think that's kind of a normal thing, because we even talked about it with our grandparents. Some of our grandparents were probably like maybe not the most accepting groups of people.
I think one thing to really consider is that most likely Howard Philip Lovecraft was a curmudgeon, and he was going to complain about any goddamn thing.
I think you're right.
After 2 weeks. So you meet Monica Bellucci, Sophie Loren, and you got the sexiest lady of her time on your side, and 2 weeks later, you're not going to leave her because you're not a total idiot, but you're a curmudgeon, so you're just going to complain. There's so much work. Oh my God, you want another glass of wine? No. You want me to say hello in the morning and kiss you goodnight? No. What? There's 100 guys at your front door lined up to do any of that for her. Idiot. But no, I think for me, he did have a huge impact that isn't always understood. And for me, I think that comes from his belief in cosmicism. So cosmicism being the mixing of races, particularly alien races. So not so much Americans and Irish, or Irish and Italians and Spanish, but more so Martians and humans, or Venetians and humans, aliens and humans, and really the impact he ultimately basically started with that has led to movies that are still coming out today.
Yeah, you make a good point there. And he, I think a lot of it is also known as like cosmic horror too. I think is what they kind of
HOR, not WHO.
Yeah, we're not talking about horrors. We're talking about horror. Cosmic horror. So even though he like died pretty young in the 1960s and 70s. Did I mess up? Did I miss something here?
Cosmic horror or cosmic horror.
horror. Am I saying it correctly?
No, you're saying it absolutely right.
Okay.
It's just that they're the same thing. Two different meanings sounds exactly the same.
Man, you give me like a make me question myself. Anyways, by the time he died, a lot of his admirers and colleagues gathered his work and stuff and started publishing it, and that's when he started gaining more fame and stuff. And to your point with the cosmic stuff, when he wrote, he really kind of decentralized human beings, and he saw really humans as being very insignificant compared to the rest of the cosmos. So, like I think for those of us who've probably grown up in the United States or have any kind of like maybe Christian background, it's more human centric where, God created us, and so we're a lot more involved in like we have a much greater impact. But like his writings, he really just decentralized humans, and really it's a very minimal impact. And I think what made like a lot of his writing scary per se, or in that horror genre, was the fact that he, for his time and because of his knowledge of science, he tried to make it like anywhere between 90 to 99% real, and anywhere from 1% to 10% unknown. And he really kind of hid like the monsters or the aliens, and didn't give like a full description of what they were. Now, one of his most famous kind of like monsters or whatever from one of his writings is Cthulhu, the infamous Cthulhu from the Call of Cthulhu, and he is known to have like kind of like a squid or octopus face with tentacles and claws and wings and stuff like that. So when you're saying like he had a lot of influence on movies and stuff, you would see Cthulhu in the Pirates of the Caribbean with Davy Jones. And he also was the first one to write about the history or background of the Necronomicon.
Who doesn't love Evil Dead and Army of Darkness? Awesome movies.
Right?
Cult classics.
They are cult classics.
Ash versus the Evil Dead. Yes!
Oh, I love that series, Ash versus the Evil Dead. That's so funny.
He's got that body on him. He's looking through, yeah.
So, if for those of you guys who've never seen Army of Darkness or Evil Dead or Ash versus the Evil Dead, the main book there is the Book of the Dead, which is called the Necronomicon. And he's supposed to go get the Necronomicon, and he screws up because he goes up there and he's supposed to say whatever kind of like chant for the Necronomicon. And when he comes up to the Necronomicon, he's like, the Necro. And he just screws everything up.
He's got his gun. This is my boomstick.
Any of you medieval fucks. Give me some sugar, baby.
First you want to kill me. Now you want to.
So that's a really great influence there. If you do like Evil Dead and all that, that's a pretty good one here. Also, another really good influence though happens to come in the comics. I think I mentioned this to you, but with Batman, Arkham Asylum is actually named after a fictional city that he created in one of his stories called Arkham, Massachusetts. I never knew that. I was listening to Coast to Coast AM with the guest host of Ian Punkett, and that's where I learned that part out there. I'm just dropping Coast to Coast AM just so I can write it off.
Nice, I like that. I was listening to Eminem.
I mean, if you never listened to Coast to Coast AM, they do talk about weird stuff all the time on there: aliens, UFOs, Bigfoot, HP Lovecraft, among other things. So some of the other people that he influenced was Guillermo del Toro with the making of Hellboy. You get The Mummy with the Book of the Dead and some other things in there. Did you ever see the old horror movie Reanimator?
It's been a long time since I rock and rolled, but yes.
Okay, so the Reanimator is actually his story.
Reanimated.
It's a cult classic. It's a pretty good horror movie there if you've never seen it. But here's a one that you might know quite a bit about. But True Detective first season.
Absolutely.
They had a big influence with HP Lovecraft.
Mm-hmm.
Anything you want to mention about that one, or?
True Detective was good. I think for that one, for me, that goes more of this dark tale, more like the Necronomicon than alien cosmicism. But yeah, that one's different. I don't necessarily see, when I think about him and what he did, his work impacting that the same as I do, as you mentioned, Carpenter's The Thing, the remake of the movie The Thing.
The Thing, yeah.
Now that absolutely, to me, speaks his word, where what is this? Is it half human? Yes. Ultimately, you realize this thing is morphing as it's going along. And that absolutely speaks to what he said. One thing that struck me very interestingly is when you mentioned that he looked at anywhere from 90 to 99% of reality and 1 to 10% of fiction in his mind. But ultimately, I think that's what he told people so that they were more comfortable with it. The truth of the matter is almost everything that he's written in one way, form, or fashion has come true. We have had our presidents of multiple nations come out and tell us aliens are real. We've had all these different things happen, and these are the things he was writing about, the possibilities of, for example, blending genes, Jurassic Park, and reanimating or creating new species, new versions, new aliens, morphing, misgenerations, creating new beings by blending too.
Yeah, you made a really good point there. And going back here a little bit to True Detective, when you go into there, they do talk about like the one of them. I guess like the main driving force there was like the kind of like old god or entity that they said was the Yellow King and stuff like that.
Bloodletting, things like that.
Yeah, and that was all part of like his story, one of the stories that he wrote, or multiple of them. And another thing you brought up, John Carpenter, The Thing. And that was actually part of like a 3-movie series that kind of really focused on HP Lovecraft's work. The other 2 were Prince of Darkness, which I've always loved that movie when I was a kid. I think that's the one where they go into a church, and then like they're like they go into a church, and there's like some kind of like liquid or something going on in there, and like the devil's trying to come through from another dimension. And then there's the Mouth of Madness, I think is what it's called. It's the 3rd movie in that series. Yeah, Mouth of Madness. I haven't seen that one in a really long time, so I can't really talk about that one because I don't really remember it that well.
Dude, Prince of Darkness is a good movie. I don't know about the Mouth of Madness either, but looking at Prince of Darkness, I remember that, and that is pretty. 1987 though, bro. The special effects were terrible. Then they were awesome. But it's kind of like revisiting Scott Pilgrim versus the World and realizing, wow. What would this movie be if you remade it now? What could it be? And it's still a great movie. Prince of Darkness is a struggle.
I think the reason why I remember that movie so much is because of the Asian guy who's like in the, he's kind of like the fuck up look, well, he's messed up looking Asian guy. that was in that Kirk Russell movie. Something China.
Big Trouble in Little China. How
did
you forget about Big Trouble in Little China?
I didn't forget. I knew the movie. I just forgot the title. Whatever.
Yeah.
Anyways, another big influencer that he influenced was Stephen King.
I can see that.
Stephen King said that when he was a young kid, he found one of the books from HP Lovecraft in his dad's library. And after reading that, he said that he was home. And if you look at kind of like the series on Hulu called Castle Rock, a lot of the area in that New England type of area that Stephen King has written about, that's where a lot of his stuff happens or occurs, is very similar to the New England towns that were made up by H.P. Lovecraft, where a lot of things occur. So there's a lot of correlation right there between Stephen King and H.P. Lovecraft. He also has Alan Moore. He influenced. He did the graphic novels of The Watchmen and V for Vendetta. Mm-hmm. as well as I was going to mention Dungeons and Dragons. So games, tabletop games. A lot of the characters from Dungeons and Dragons and the scenarios that they use in the beginning were like HP Lovecraft influenced, as well as video games from Hideki Miyazuki called the Bloodborne series. They did that. And then another one here is with, I don't know if this really falls underneath the artists or under movies, but H.R. Geiger and his drawings of the Alien for the Alien series, he was heavily influenced by H.P. Lovecraft.
Also makes sense. And I would say, as far as all of the series considered here, the Alien and Predator series, to me, show the biggest impact. And again, much like The Thing, in Alien, Aliens, et cetera, you have these beings that start out as eggs, lay an egg, and ultimately morph into a cross being. That cosmicism takes effect and they become something better than one, but taking the best of both. And I think that's what I really liked about the remake of Predators, is when they showed this group and two different predator factions, one trying to be the naturalist, staying true to their genes, and the others continually trying to evolve, much like the aliens did, and coming up with these monster predators that were twice as tall as the regular ones. But you got to really ask, like, is one right, is one wrong? We all understand one side, but at the end of the day, if you're trying to take over the universe, you want the best of the best.
Right. I think it's really weird, like how he's written like over 60 to 70 pieces of work, and he grew up poor, and he pretty much died poor. But if you look at his influence across so many genres, like you got the horror genre in general, but you got tabletop games, video games, movies, literature, art, TV shows. He's influenced our culture very greatly. Not even our culture, but like
cultures.
Like you got like basically the American, you got Japanese, Chinese, like some of the other places. And it's amazing how much more his work has influenced people after he's died.
That's common with a lot of these people. The other thing I'll tell you, or I want to tell you, is mention and remind you, you probably saw this as well. Actually, when he was very young, his family was super affluent, and it wasn't until after his dad passed and his dad's parents stopped giving the money, so to speak, and he was living with his mom, that things got tough. I think this is where the true art comes in with Howard Philip Lovecraft, HP Lovecraft, with so many artists and so many great people, is that they grow up with these insecurities based on events and things like that. Like, everything's good until it's not. And the tragedy is, had things gone the other way, say he was poor until he was 8 years old and then became affluent, he wouldn't remember the poor years. What he doesn't remember is the affluent years. But there were still glimpses, there are in those things in his work. And really, I think that also shows, when I think of it psychologically, you see it as someone who's like, man, I wish I could morph back into something between these two worlds. I'm not asking to be the super rich a-hole, but I want to be somewhere in between poor and rich. I don't want to be suffering. I want to be well. Finding that happy median, again, it makes perfect sense as a curmudgeon. You got the likes of Mark Twain, also not so much in cosmicism, but also a brilliant genius writer, amongst other things. And so many people, actually, that I have known personally, where their childhoods, they saw both.
I think you make a really good point there, because no one who reads Latin and Greek grew up totally poor.
Right? Exactly. But it is one of those things where, man, you get a taste of both sides. You appreciate more in life, and you understand. And this is weird to think about, but you almost understand and appreciate the essence and the essential base for blending. And not everyone's going to like that. And he himself hated it. But at the end of the day, that's what he's writing about. Different races, aliens and non-aliens, blending. It absolutely is curious, but absolutely also psychologically it makes perfect sense for a curmudgeon.
Yeah, and some of his works too, he talks, like they talk about like I'm not sure which pieces of work it is, but I know it's like in Arkham, and then I think the other one's called the other town's called Innsbruck or something like that. But anyways, they're both in Massachusetts, I think. But the problem is, like in these towns, half the people are like normal humans, and the other half are like aliens or some other kind of things going on.
I think that's at the Mountains of Madness.
Is it the Mountain?
I
Okay,
think so.
Mountains of Madness. Okay, and it's kind of weird because you think about that, and like here's I'm going to tie this back into the X-Files again because like I've been on a big huge X-Files kick, but like. You know, when you look at like Scully and Mulder, Mulder's like a big, trying to like find out this whole alien conspiracy, which I think you can almost tie this into HP Lovecraft because like we have he discovers that there are aliens among us, and they act and look like humans, but they're not humans and stuff like that. And I think that kind of fits into that storyline too.
It does. For
I'm,
sure.
I'm sorry I had to throw in X-Files. Like I'm in season 9 now, and there's only 2 more seasons left, so I'm almost done.
Dude.
The last 2 seasons are they're 10 episodes each, so I should be done here shortly.
Out of curiosity, are millennials known to binge watch?
I don't know. I think they are, aren't they?
I'll bet they are.
Dude,
I struggle to watch 4 movies in a weekend, but I do it for my kids.
Here's the thing, I don't know what, I have kind of, I realized this after probably Netflix came out or whatever, but I have an addictive personality where if there's a TV show I have to binge watch it. And I know you have a little bit of that in you too. Because when we open up a Scotch, it doesn't last.
Yeah, there are these different pieces. Man, that's just science, by the way. I hate to say that. It's because science has proven that stuff doesn't last. I wish science literally proved the longer the bottle isn't fully drinking, the better the Scotch goes. But the science literally shows, man, once you're past the halfway mark, you are lucky if you got 6 months before that Scotch is...
I'm just giving you a hard time.
No, you're good. You're good because I think this is my struggle is that I want the best.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not saying people don't want the best. I want the best to the point where I will go extra miles in multiple directions to get the best. And if that means I've got 1 week to drink a bottle of Scotch,
you might as well do it.
She's gone in a week.
Hey, and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, honestly, that's some of these scotches, though, to your point, we've tasted them, they've sat around for a couple months to half a year, and they don't taste the same as they do when we first open them. So,
and unfortunately, none of them have been better.
No, none of them have gotten better over time.
This tastes like rotten dog turd water.
There's been some that tasted pretty good the next day, but
Even
a month
week later.
But yeah, week later, month later, no, not as good. All right, I think, do you have anything else you want to say about HP Lovecraft? I mean, I just think he's had a lot of influence in some of our literature and stuff like that, which I think is great.
I have one question for you.
Sure.
What made you want to cover this subject?
Like,
where did you first learn about HP Lovecraft, and where did your appreciation grow from? Because I think this is important to really start to consider and revisit these things, even for our audience to consider what made you guys who you are. And I agree. There are certain things that I think of, including my next subject for next week, where I'm like, man, yeah, that was 1992. I remember it.
Okay, so HP Lovecraft never really entered into my radar or into my sphere until True Detective season 1. And setting into doing as you know, I first started a different podcast, which only has probably 4 episodes in 4 or 5 episodes, and is a little bit more of a conspiracy type of podcast that dealt with TV shows and movies. And my very first one had to do with True Detective, and so I did a little bit of a deeper dive. So I ended up doing a lot of research and found a lot of information about HP Lovecraft and the influence in that TV series, and that's kind of where I first kind of got introduced to HP Lovecraft, and that'd be kind of a good topic to eventually cover sometime in our podcast. And when we came across this, particular bottle. It seemed like a fun and quirky type of bottle or scotch that HP Lovecraft would kind of fall into the quirkiness of it. If I were probably to have read the box fully, I probably would have gotten something along like the lines of like the influence of like punk rock or something. But in any case, I just saw it with the box from the minimal stuff that I saw from it when I first picked it up. I thought HP Lovecraft would be kind of an interesting subject to go along with the scotch.
It's interesting. So you're talking just under a decade ago is when you first really considered HP Lovecraft.
Yes.
So for me, for my next smarter challenge is actually going to be a movie review, and we can take it. You can take it in any direction you want to. The history, the after effects, many different things. This one will be easy to remember. Blade Runner, the original Blade Runner.
OMG, yeah, I love Blade Runner,
dude. Right? So. Interestingly enough, Harrison Ford, when he was doing this movie, didn't want to do it. He hated it. He was a jerk on set. So without removing more future data from this review, Blade Runner, the impacts it's had on our lives since then, how it got
I just jizzed my pants, dude. Sorry.
All right, man. Well,
sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you there.
Gonna get you a paper towel and a blow dryer.
No, seriously, like Blade Runner is an awesome topic, dude. Sorry, I couldn't contain myself there.
I agree. Maybe contain a little bit, but so with that, we've had this long string of different scotches, and for the scotch for Blade Runner, again, the original Blade Runner, we can bring up the remake. This is the Ben Riach Smoky 12.
Oh.
We've done the 10, the Smoky 10, the 12, and now we're going to do the Smoky 12.
Smoky.
And with that, man, I say we do the Emerald Isle for our restaurant review. We go down there. It's a little bar. It's been around forever. We finally go watch a little sunset and talk about Blade Runner.
Can we also bring in like the other elements of Blade Runner too, like the new Blade Runner, and then also the animated series?
Yeah, anything you want. My whole point, though, really for me is to revisit the original Blade Runner because it absolutely changed, much like so many movies.
Well, it was like probably like one of the most renowned sci-fi movies that kind of like changed the whole genre.
I think it is, and you know, way down the road, you see other huge advancements. But yeah, it's considered one of the greats. And honestly, once you know Harrison Ford was miserable filming this and didn't want to be in it, you can see it in the movie. Quite the opposite of Keanu Reeves and Lawrence Fishburne when they take that next elevation and next step into changing the science fiction movie world.
You know, it's kind of funny you say that because I think he was more than willing to do the sequel.
Oh, yeah. Once he got all those awards and stuff, he's like, this is cool. No, it's interesting because there are so many articles out there how he was miserable. He didn't want to do it. It was below him. Literally, that's what he told the directors and the producers. This movie's below me because he had such a big head after doing the original Star Wars.
That makes sense. But that movie is like an incredible sci-fi movie. It's probably one of it's like a pinnacle, I guess, or whatever for sci-fi movies.
Absolutely.
It's
great. Like you see its impact even in the Marvel movies when they go to different.
And here's the thing though, there's like, you know how there's like 10 different versions of the original movie. Like they have like the final cut, the director's final cut, the director's cut, the remake. It's like, which one is actually the cut that I really need to watch? But they're like there's literally like 10 different cuts, it seems like.
Watch whichever cut you want. I'm going with the American.
That's a good question though. I mean, can a human really have a love affair with a replicant and have children? That's a good question to approach next episode.
On the next episode of Scotch Hour, we're going to try to make a baby.
Humans and replicants. All right. Anything you want to say to the people before we go?
No, sir? Please continue to drink responsibly, much like we do. In other words, drink and do not drive. in most cases. And with that, please give us feedback. Let us know what you like, what you don't like. If you have a Scotch you'd want us to try, and if you want to be on the show, give us a shout out. You can contact us. Donate. Hit the little link at the bottom right below on there where it says to give us $1 a month. And then that is the easiest way to get invited to movie reviews where we rent out theaters and do a multitude of other things coming.
Do you have an idea for the next one?
Man, I want to do Bullet Train, but I know we're doing something for Mission Impossible.
Mission Impossible is not until 2023.
I know, Dark Reckoning, episode 1. But I really am still trying to arrange Bullet Train.
And that's in August?
Dude, I think that's 3 weeks away, 4 weeks away. Yeah, we got
Can we flip that?
What do you mean?
Can we do that?
I mean, I think we can make it work. Give us a couple dollars here and there, everyone. We'll make it happen.
All right. Well, sweet. I'll just say thank you to our to the people who listen to us on our Audible type services, which would be like podcast, Spotify, Podbean, iHeartRadio. You guys are amazing. I mean, I know I've been sick the last couple, like the week, last like 2 weeks ago, and I hadn't done a very good job of like uploading the Audible type of episodes here. And I think 1 week I was at my parents' house and I had like terrible like internet service for really like 3 weeks of like of our show never made it onto the Audible service. And you guys have been great. You guys kept us like pretty much up to par where we were from the month before. So I greatly appreciate all of you listeners out there doing that. For those of you who do watch us on YouTube and Rumble, thank you once again for being great viewers and watching our show. You guys have kept our numbers up on that as well. Please, as Jesse said, leave us a comment. I know there's one of you guys out there who've been leaving comments on the last couple of our episodes, so we do greatly appreciate that. And one of us usually tries to at least comment back, if not both of us. And so we do greatly appreciate that. And we hopefully you guys will come back next week and watch us for our next episode talking about Blade Runner. And once again, if you do look down below in our comments, the very first link there, which talks about Podbean patrons, that's where you can go ahead and donate to us. Or if you want to do a one-time donation, you can email us and we can tell you how to do that as well. Thanks again, everyone. Hope you guys have a great night and a great week. And
dude, 2 things.
Okay.
1, we got 6 weeks, August 5th, Bullet Train. We can probably make that happen.
You can probably make that one happen.
I'm going to go with an HP Lovecraft version of 99 to 1. 99% chance we're going to make that happen. The second thing, watch for an upcoming episodes, the next version, the next scene from Scotch Hour Fake News, where we've got the new version of Shaun from the Dead.
All right, sounds good. Scotchman! Cheers. We hope you enjoyed this evening's episode of Scotch Hour. If you did, please like, share, and subscribe. Also, if you have not done so already, please become a patron member, with memberships starting as low as $1 a month. Thank you, and hopefully you have a wonderful evening.